So if you guys are able to, that will be great. So tonight I am going to be teaching you guys how to actually set up a trust. So you've come to the right place. And I will tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Christina Yvette. I am a trust strategist, you guys. So I have been a trustee for quite a few years now, since 2015. And the way that I actually became a trustee was by way of real estate, you guys. So I was actually a registered nurse. And I was literally in the rat race. So I was working 5 days a week, 12-hour shifts, and I was working, more hours in the hospital. And after my first year in nursing, I got burnt out. And so because I was spending more time with my coworkers than I was spending with my 1-year-old son, I told myself I need to find another stream of income, right? And preferably that other stream should be passive, right? Tracy said she's an RN as well. Congratulations. I love that. Yeah, so I'm an RN as well as a realtor here in Florida. So I decided to go to a conference where they were teaching people how to flip houses. So I signed up for mentorship, and within 6 months, I bought my first property. It was a fix and flip, little 2-bedroom, 1-bath house. I bought it for $89,000. I ended up flipping that property and I sold it for $235,000. But before any of that happened, my mentor told me that I had to actually put that property into a trust. Why? Because that property was being renovated. And so anything could happen to the property, right? Which means that someone could get injured, and I didn't want to be at the risk of getting sued. So that's why I listened to what my mentor said, and I actually put that property into a trust, right? And so, like I said, I have been protecting my assets ever since, and now everything that I do is within the trust, okay? So tonight, what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you guys how to actually set up a trust, okay? The different steps that it takes. So let's dive in, you guys. I have a short presentation for you guys, and then after the presentation, I will go ahead and dive into Q&A. So whatever questions that you have, feel free to ask me as soon as I'm done with the presentation, okay? All right. Excuse me. All righty, here we go. So, you guys are here to learn what is an actual trust, right? And so a lot of us, we hear the term trust, but we're not sure what it actually means. And so, or what it actually is, right? We hear the term trust fund, we hear trust fund baby, we hear all of these things, but we're not sure. So a trust is actually an entity. So it is considered a living, breathing entity, just like how you are considered a living, breathing entity, right? So the way that a trust is created is through a contract, okay? And that contract is going to be, on black and white in a contract style, and there are several different parts to that contract. So because you're an entity and a trust is entity, a trust can actually do anything and everything that you can do, okay? Which is absolutely amazing. Because if you can buy a house, a trust can buy a house. If you can set up credit or build credit, a trust can also build credit. So there's no limitations to what the actual trust can do, okay? So with this contract, there are several different parts to the contract, but the two that I want to tell you guys about is, first is the declaration. So the declaration is where you're declaring what it is and what it is not. So you're declaring that it is a trust, and you're declaring that it is not an LLC, a partnership, or a corporation. The second part is the actual indenture or agreement, where you put all of the rules and regulations, or what we call the provisions. So that's where you're going to set the rules to how you want the trust to be operated by the trustee, okay? So so that's what you guys, need to know about the actual trust. So let's keep going, okay? So now, because it's a contract, there are several different parties involved in this contract, okay? So there's three main parties. So the first one is the grantor. The grantor is the creator of the trust, okay? So that is the individual, and sometimes we use the word settlor or trustor when we're referring to the grantor, but that's the person who has established the trust, and they've established the trust for the benefit of somebody else. That somebody else is the beneficiary, okay? So The next party involved is the trustee. The trustee is the controller of the trust. So they are the individuals who are going to be operating the trust on a day-to-day basis, and they have all the control over the assets that are inside of the trust. So they're actually running the trust for somebody else, which is the beneficiary. So ultimately, the beneficiary is the inheritor of the trust. So that is the individual who is going to receive the assets once the trust is terminated, okay? So that is the individual who's going to be receiving distributions or benefiting from the actual trust, okay? So let's talk about the different types of trust, okay? There are several different types of trust that you need to know of. And there's hundreds and hundreds of different types of trust. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some different categories that all trusts fall under, okay? So the first category is express versus implied. So an express trust is a written trust. So remember I told you that contract style, that's what that is, okay? So an express trust is a written trust in a contract style on paper on black and white. On the contrary to that, you have an implied trust, which is an oral trust, okay? So that is where you have an oral agreement between the grantor and the trustee, okay? So next we have simple versus complex. So a simple trust is a pretty much short and sweet trust, okay? So it's shorter in nature, so there's not that many rules and regulations, and the trustee is required to give a distribution to the beneficiary, versus a complex trust is actually longer in nature, and the trustee is not required to give distributions to the beneficiaries, okay? So the next type of category that I want to tell you guys about is statutory versus non-statutory. So with a statutory trust, it means that there are state statutes and codes that are embedded inside of the trust contract. So we have statutory law. So every single law that is passed in the specific state that you decide to set up the trust, those laws are then embedded inside of the contract, which means that that state gets to regulate your trust. That means that most likely that trust is a part of the public records and is registered with the state. That also means that you are restricted and can only use that statutory trust in that state. So if you wanted to, if you set up your trust in Georgia, but you wanted to use it in Florida, you cannot because it's limited, okay? So just keep that in mind. On the contrary to that, you have non-statutory. So a non-statutory trust is actually operating under the common law jurisdiction, which means that you can actually use it in any and all states, right? So that means that it's domestic and you can use it in all 50 states plus all of the US territories because there's no state statutes or codes embedded inside of the actual contract, which means that you you get to maintain the privacy of the trust, and the state doesn't have the power or jurisdiction to regulate your trust, okay? So you definitely want to keep that in mind when you are choosing what type of trust you want, okay? So next, we have discretionary versus non-discretionary. So with a discretionary trust, that means that you as the trustee are able to make decisions on behalf of the trust that you feel is in the best interest of the trust estate without those powers on being embedded inside of the contract, right? So that's one way. And then the other way is non-statutory, is non-discretionary, which means that you actually cannot make decisions for the trust if they're not written inside of the trust. So you don't have that flexibility that you need in order to, you know, operate the trust as you want to, okay? So next we have revocable versus irrevocable, okay? So with a revocable trust, that means that the grantor has revocability. So that means that if they were to set up the trust and they wanted to terminate it, they can. If they put assets into the trust, they can take it out at any point in time. If they appointed a trustee or beneficiary, they can also remove those individuals at any point in time. And once they set up the trust, if they wanted to make any changes or amendments to the trust, they could also do that as well. So with a revocable trust is actually seen as an alter ego. And so with that type of trust, unfortunately, creditors can come after the assets that you put inside of that trust. So, for example, if a creditor was to try to go after your assets, and let's just say that that trust end up in litigation, then the judge could decide to pierce through the trust. If the judge decides to pierce through the trust, that means that they are actually going to force you to bring the trust to court, right? And then it becomes a part of the public records, which means that everyone now is going to actually know what's inside of your trust, know who your beneficiaries are, what assets you have in the actual trust, okay? So you have to be mindful of that when you're deciding versus a revocable and irrevocable. Okay, so now on the other side, we have irrevocable. Okay, so with the irrevocable trust, the grantor has what we call irrevocability. So that means that they have no power and control. So if they put assets into the trust, they can't take the assets out. So the assets will have to be sold back to them, right? If they wanted to terminate the trust, they cannot. If they wanted to make changes to the trust, they cannot. And if they wanted to remove the trustees or beneficiaries, they cannot. Okay. And so because they have no power, no control, creditors actually cannot come after that type of trust. And so your assets are actually fully protected in that type of trust. So if that type of trust was to end up in litigation, the judge would decide not to pierce through that type of trust because it's irrevocable. Okay, so you have to be mindful of the different categories that I just mentioned so that you can decide the best type of trust for you. Okay. So let's keep moving forward. So now let's go through the different steps that it takes in order for you to actually create a trust, okay? So the first one is that you want to determine what type of trust that you want to create. So based off the categories that I just told you guys about, the best trust is what we call the bulletproof trust, right? And so the bulletproof trust is where it's an express trust, so it's in writing. It's a complex in nature. It's actually non-statutory. It is discretionary and it is irrevocable. Okay, so all of those categories are within this type of trust. Okay, so that's the type of trust that you guys want if you want your assets to be fully protected in the event that somebody tries to sue you. Okay, so number two is that you want to actually, once you now have determined the type of trust that you want to create, you're going to name the trust. So there's two things that I want you to keep in mind. The first thing is that you do not want to name the trust after yourself, okay? So that is going to be detrimental to the trust because you don't want anyone to know that you're associated with the trust because we want to remain private, okay? So that's one thing. So do not name the trust after yourself. So if your name is John Doe, do not name the trust John Doe Trust, okay? The next thing is that the trust name doesn't have to end with the word trust, okay? So keep that in mind. Next, once you have figured out a name for the trust, then you want to appoint the different parties, okay? So those different parties are the grantor, trustee, beneficiary, and a successor. So with the grantor, if you are creating a trust that is irrevocable, then what you want to do is you don't want to be the grantor, okay? So you have to choose either you're going to be the grantor or the trustee, right? So with the grantor, they have no power and no control, and the trustee has all the power and all the control. So you want to appoint yourself as the trustee of an irrevocable trust, okay? So that you can have all the power and control the assets and run the trust on a day-to-day basis. You're going to choose someone else to be your grantor. That person can be a next of kin. So it could be like a best friend, a coworker, a neighbor, or someone who is at least 18 years or older and able to notarize the trust with you and for you. So then you're going to choose the beneficiaries. The beneficiaries can be other entities, like other trusts, and can also be your children, okay? So keep that in mind. And then lastly, you're going to choose a successor. So that person is a successor trustee. So that is the individual who's going to take over after you in the event that something happens to you. Because the trust is actually designed to outlive you, okay? And so because the trust is designed to outlive you, you have to already have your successor in mind in the event that you don't wake up, you become incapacitated or you decide to resign, then the successor is going to pick up where you left off. Number three is you're going to actually create the agreement, the contract. So you're going to put all of the rules and regulations of how you want this trust to operate. So some of the provisions that we put are spendthrift provisions where you can actually control the money from the grave. So you'll go ahead and limit what the beneficiaries can spend the distributions on, okay? Number four is to actually notarize the trust. That is what's going to make the trust legal, okay? So you have to actually legalize the trust before you can start to use the trust, okay? So once it's notarized, it needs to be notarized by two individuals. So it needs to be notarized by the grantor and the trustee. Those are the two signatures that are required in order to execute this trust, okay? And so once it's legal, then you can begin to use it, okay? And so the first thing that you want to do is you want to open up a bank account and you want to fund that trust fund, okay? So the type of accounts that you can open up with a trust is you can open up a checking account, you can open up a savings account, you can open up a money market account, or a cash management account, or a brokerage account, okay? And as far as the actual as far as the actual institutions, you can use any financial institution, meaning you can use a bank, a credit union, or a brokerage, okay? So what you want to do is you're going to bring two things. You're going to bring the certificate of trust, which is proof of identity that the trust actually exists. And so it's kind of similar to like an ID. So you know how you walk around with a driver's license? Well, the certificate of trust is actually another version of the driver's license for the trust entity, okay? And then you're going to use your EIN number. That's going to be specific for banking purposes, and that's a 9-digit number that you're going to receive from the IRS. So once you have set up your trust fund, you're going to fund it, okay? You can fund it with whatever amount you want. Sometimes these banks have a minimum. So some banks, their minimum is $100. Some banks are $1,000. So you'll fund it with whatever the minimum is that you want, or the minimum that's required by the bank, okay? So now that you've opened up your bank account, the last thing that you want to do is you want to actually transfer your assets inside of the trust. That is what's going to protect your assets. If your assets are not inside of the trust, they're not protected, okay? So the first thing that you want to do is you want to transfer your primary residence into the house. So the house that you live in, right, that's in your personal name, somebody can, if they decide to sue you, they can actually take your property or seize it from you, okay? So you don't want that to happen. So what you want to do is you want to protect it. So you're actually going to gift that home into the trust by way of a quitclaim deed so that you don't have to pay any capital gains taxes on that transfer of property from your personal name into the name of the trust, okay? So once that happens, then you're going to be all set in stone so that you are able to then have the trust be financially responsible for the assets that are inside of the trust, okay? So let's keep moving on. All right, so so the number one reason why you actually want to protect your assets or want to set up a trust is to protect your assets and to remain private, okay? So those are the two reasons why you actually want to set up a trust. So a trust can actually protect you from bankruptcies, divorce, foreclosure, heavy taxation, lawsuits, and probate. So let's talk about a few of them. So the first one is divorce, right? So a lot of people, they don't know that a divorce is a transfer of wealth, you guys. And so it's actually a lawsuit between two spouses. And unfortunately, sometimes one spouse will end up with everything or half, and the other spouse will end up with nothing or half, right? And so the way that a trust can actually protect you is because with a divorce, what's included inside a divorce is everything that's in your personal name. So the house that's in your personal name, the 401k that's in your personal name, the stocks, the bonds, the bank accounts with the cash, all of that stuff is in your personal name, okay? So that's what's going to be included in the divorce. But the beautiful thing about a trust is that the trust is a separate entity from you. So if you set up a trust and you have houses, you have insurance policies, you have, you know, cars, you have stocks, bonds, any cash in there, then guess what? Nothing that is inside of that trust can be pulled into your divorce because the trust is not you, okay? So just keep that in mind in order to protect yourself from a divorce. Let's talk about heavy taxation, because a lot of us were giving away 50% of our income, right? So some of us, we live in these, high income tax states like New York and California. And so just imagine you being able to save, on your income so that you can actually put that money somewhere else towards investments, right? So one of the trusts that we use within our structure is a tax exempt trust. And what you can do is you can actually donate up to 60% of your salary or your what we call your annual gross income to this trust. And so now that you've decided to actually donate up to 60% of your income to the trust, then what happens is instead of you being taxed on 100% of your income, now you're only going to be taxed on 40%, which means that you're going to be saving thousands of dollars that you can now move that money and put it somewhere else, meaning you can put it into crypto, real estate, stocks, bonds, your insurance policy, things like that, okay? Let's talk about lawsuits, right? Because unfortunately, we are living in a very sue-friendly country, right? The United States of America. And so anybody and everybody wants to sue you, right? Your sibling wants to sue you, your neighbor wants to sue you. So what you need to do is you need to protect yourself so that they don't have the opportunity to be able to take your assets away from you, right? So for example, a lot of us, we don't know that a lot of the information is public records, okay? So that means that, for example, your house that you live in, right? Anybody and everybody is able to look it up. Why? Because all they have to do is go down to the county website, do a property search, put your first and last name, and every single property that you own in that county is going to show up, right? Or vice versa. They'll put the address and your name shows up, right? So they know that you're the owner. And so if they want to sue you and you lose that lawsuit, guess what happens? They can garnish your wages and they can seize your assets. So they can take your house away, your car, they can wipe out your bank account, they can start garnishing your W-2 income. So you don't want that to happen. So that's why you want to set up a trust in order to protect yourself, because now instead of you owning the house that you live in, what you want is you want the trust to own the house that you live in so that you are able to then control the asset, which is the house that you live in, okay? So that's the best way to do it, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. So number 6 is probate, right? So right now we're talking about your primary residence, right? And so with your primary residence, let's just say that you have a will and you didn't wake up, right? You didn't wake up tomorrow. And so in your will, you put that you wanted your son or your daughter to receive your property, right? Unfortunately, the only way for that property to be transferred from your personal name into the name of your son or your daughter is through the court system. A lot of us, we don't know that. And unfortunately, our children, they're losing their inheritance because we don't know that, right? And so we need to now, get the right information so that we can correct whatever is going on, right? So with that being said, so let's just say that you have, you have that will and you didn't wake up tomorrow, right? And so you have a house, you have a car, you got 7 figures in the bank, you have credit card debt, you have student loan debt, right? So what happens is now your children are actually going to have to be forced to go through the probate process. So the probate process is through the court system where they actually transfer your assets, right, into an estate. So unfortunately, everyone is going to go through probate. You're going to go through probate. I'm going to go through probate. The only way that we can avoid probate, because it's inevitable, is through setting up a trust. That's the only thing that's going to prevent you from going through probate, okay? So now the second thing is that with the probate process, right? A lot of us, we don't even know that we're all going to end up having an estate, right? So in the event that you don't wake up tomorrow and you only had a will, you thought that the will was good enough, it actually wasn't. Because the will can't own anything. A will end up in probate. So what happens is the state where you live, right, where you're a resident. So let's just say you're, a resident of Alabama. That state is actually going to set up an estate for you. And they're going to name it after you. So they're going to, create the John Doe estate. And then they're going to transfer all of your assets in there. So your house, your car, your bank accounts, right? Your stocks, your bonds, the cash money that you have, the $1 million, all of that stuff is going to go inside of your estate that Alabama created for you. And then what's going to happen, right? So unfortunately, now that the state transferred everything into your estate after they created it, your estate needs to be represented in probate court, right? So it needs to be represented by a probate attorney, and it's going to be represented in probate court. And it's going to be up to a probate judge to decide if your children get your assets, if they get the house, if they get the money that's in the bank account, right? So the way that that process works is the judge first is going to pay off your debt. So what's going to come out of your estate is they're going to pay off the hospital bills, any medical bills, the nursing home. They're going to pay off the student loan debt, the credit card debt, the car loan, all of your bills or liabilities. And then whatever is left over, right, at that point in time, then the probate attorney is going to take their fees and the probate court is going to take their fees, right? So now pretty much majority of whatever was in your estate is already eaten up by just those 3 different groups. And then whatever is left over, meaning if you have assets or cash, the leftovers go to your children, which is very unfortunate, right? Because right now, at that moment in time, your children are grieving. But because you didn't have your affairs in order, then what happens is, so because you didn't have your affairs in order, what happens is your children, they are now dragged through the probate process, okay? And so they don't even get to grieve in peace because they just lost the most important person of their life. But instead of them being able to grieve in peace, they actually have to now fight in court in order to keep your house, in order to keep their inheritance, right? So you're actually doing your family a disservice by allowing them to go through or be forced through the probate process. So what you want to do is you want to have your affairs in order, and you actually want to create your own estate, right? Instead of letting the state of Georgia create that estate for you. Why? Because you already know that you want your children to inherit your assets, right? You already know that you want them to inherit the money that's in the bank, the insurance money, the house, right? And so if you know that, then why are you going to force them to have to go to the court for it to be up to a judge that doesn't know your children and that doesn't know you, instead of you doing it yourself? So you want to have your affairs in order, because guess what that process then looks like? Well, let's just say that you set up a trust. So you have your own estate. You put your house in there, you put your car in there, you have a bank account for the trust where you have your $1 million in there, right? You have insurance where you have the trust be the owner, right? So now what happens? You didn't wake up tomorrow. So guess what happens? Nothing, right? So nothing happens as far as probate is concerned, because everything's going to remain intact, because your house is going to remain in the name of the trust and your children are the beneficiary of the house, right? Or of the trust, right? So they're the beneficiary of the trust. So they are already pretty much the beneficial owners of that asset, right? And the debt that you had, right? The medical bills, the nursing home, the hospital bills, the student loan debt, the credit card debt, that debt dies with you. And those creditors cannot come after your trust estate. So your children actually receive their inheritance if you actually get your affairs in order, okay? So let's keep moving on. All right, guys. So this is my favorite slide from this whole entire presentation, okay? This is where we're going to learn the wealth building formula. So this is where we're going to learn how to build generational wealth the right way. Because a lot of us, we are walking around talking about how we're building generational wealth, but we don't even have the tools in place in order to build generational wealth, right? And so one of the tools is a trust, right? So let's talk about it. So with the wealth building formula, we have 3 pillars here. We have structure, we have credit, and we have invest. So let's talk about the first pillar. So structure. It's so important for you guys to be able to be structured the right way, okay? Structure is so important because it can actually, one, protect you, it can protect your growing wealth, and it can actually help you reduce taxes so that you're able to grow your wealth efficiently and effectively, as long as you're structured properly. So this is the structure that we recommend. We recommend one that you have multiple trusts within your structure, okay? That's super important because you don't want to put all of your eggs in one basket, which means that you don't want to put all your assets in one trust. We have, remember, several different types of trusts, hundreds of different types of trusts that are designed for specific reasons, okay? And so you want to use specialized trusts for special things, okay? So these are the 3 trusts that we recommend, which is a business trust for entrepreneurs and business owners, a private personal family trust in order for you to hold your personal assets, and a tax-exempt nonprofit trust in order for you to reduce your taxes, okay? So let's talk about the first one, which is the business trust. So with the business trust, you can actually use this trust in 2 ways. So the first way that you can use it is if you already have a business like an LLC or a corporation, then what you can do is you can have the business trust be the owner of that LLC or corporation, right? And so now the business trust is actually going to act as a holding company, okay? And it's going to fully protect you in the event that somebody decides to sue your business. For example, right? The company, right, or the business, an LLC, what does it stand for, right? It stands for limited liability company. So a limited liability company, it sounds like what it is, right? The company has limited liability. So who do you think has the other half of that liability, right? So that means that the company's owner, which is the authorized member of the LLC, has the other half of that liability, okay? So that means that in the event that somebody decides to sue your business, let's just say one of your clients or customers decides to sue your LLC, guess what can happen? If they take your business to court, first of all, your business is a part of the public records. Why? Because it's a statutory entity. So you have to actually go down to the state, the Secretary of State's website to be able to create that LLC. And then you put your name down as the owner of that business. So that's a part of the public records. Anybody can search that information. So if a client decides to sue you, all they have to do is just go to the Secretary of State's website, do a business name search, put in the name of your business, and then you come up as the owner of that business, right? So now what happens is they sue your business, right? It goes to court. And what can happen is you can lose. And if you lose, now there's a judgment against your business. And if that company or that business cannot fulfill that judgment, then guess what happens? The judge can decide to pierce through the corporate veil. So that tiny itty little bit of protection that you had or you thought you had, they can pierce through it. And if the judge decides to pierce through the corporate veil, then what happens? They can come after you personally for all your personal assets. So they can come after you. And if you have any personal assets like your house, you know, or anything else, they can take it, right? So meaning that they can seize your assets like your house, your car, and they can also garnish your bank accounts and your wages, your W-2 income. Why? Because that LLC that you were the owner of lost that judgment. So instead of you allowing that to happen, what you need is a first layer of protection between you and the business. So that first layer of protection is going to be the business trust. So now what you're going to do is you're going to do an amendment of the articles of organization. You're going to remove yourself as the owner of that business. Okay. And then you're going to add the business trust as the new authorized member of that LLC. So in the event that that client tries to sue you, guess what? If they decide to sue you, the business cannot cover the judgment, and the judge decides to pierce through the corporate veil and go after the owner, they're going to go after the business trust. The business trust is actually going to take full liability over that lawsuit. So they cannot come after you personally. So that's why you want to be fully protected, especially if you have a business, because that business trust is actually going to be your first layer of protection between you and the company, okay? So that's one way that you can use the business trust. The other way is you can create this entity and then you can just operate a business or conduct business with it. So instead of you going down to the Secretary of State's website and actually setting up an LLC, you can just set up a business trust and you can start running your business. It could be a real estate business, it could be retail, it could be e-com, it could be whatever it is that you want, right? So a lot of famous companies that you know of, like Google, are running through a business trust, okay? So let's just say that that LLC, right? One of the things that I love about the trust entities is that you actually spend the money first and you're taxed on the leftovers, right? Versus how we're taxed personally. So with that being said, what happens is, let's just say that your LLC is generating $100,000, right? So that money can go straight to the owner. It can be distributed to the owner, right? And so now that 100,000, let's just say, goes straight to the business trust. And now the business trust is actually able to then write off, taxes, right? So let's just say whatever it costs to operate the business trust, let's just say that is 20,000, right? So now what's going to happen is a business trust, right? The business trust and the family trust, those are for-profit entities. They pay anywhere between 10% upwards of 39% in taxes, just depending on the tax bracket, okay? And with that type of entity, it files a 1041 versus you on the personal side file a 1040, okay? So it's actually seen as a separate entity from you, which is lovely, versus your LLC, it actually goes as a Schedule C on your personal 1040 records, okay? So with that being said, 100,000 came into the LLC and you did a K-1 distribution, you send all the money to the business trust. The business trust has operating expenses of, let's just say, $25,000. So now $25,000 is deducted from that 100,000. Now you have $75,000 that's left. Out of that $75,000 that's left, you can pay taxes on it, right? Or what you can do is you can distribute it to the beneficiary. Because now once you distribute it to the beneficiary is required to pay taxes on it. And then you on the business trust level don't have to pay taxes on that $75,000. So once you distribute it, now the business trust has a 0% tax liability because 25 was deducted for operating expenses and 75 was distributed to the beneficiary. So now that 75,000 went to so now what we do is we design it or structure it to where the private family trust is actually going to be the beneficiary of the business trust. Why do we do that? Because the money that is coming into the business is actually going to be utilized to provide for the family, okay? So that's why we design it that way. So now what's going to happen is with this structure, that 75,000 has just now gone into the private family trust and is considered income. And that income, you have to pay income taxes on it, okay? So remember, we said it's anywhere between 10 to 39% depending on the tax bracket. So now, one of the things that we love about the trust is that you spend the money first and you're taxed on the leftovers. So that means that what does it cost in order to operate your family or your family trust, right? So you got housing, you have food, you have tuition, you have gas, you have car note, you have all these things. So out of that 75,000, let's just say that it costs, 55,000 in order to run your family, right? So now you have 20,000 that's left. So now at this point you have to pay taxes on that 20,000. So you'll pay 10% taxes on that 20,000. Or what you can do is an alternative, if you wanted to reduce your taxes even more, is you can donate that 20,000 to your tax exempt trust. So if you donate that, that's an additional deduction. And so now your tax liability for the private family trust is 0%. And once those funds are considered as a donation and received by the tax exempt trust, then they are automatically exempt from paying federal taxes. So you're literally done paying taxes, okay? So now let's talk about the tax exempt trust. So that trust is what we consider a 508c1a. So it's a mandatory exception to not having to file for a 501c3. So that entity is actually automatically exempt from federal taxes. This trust can also qualify to be exempt from state taxes, city taxes, county taxes, property taxes, and sales taxes, okay? So with this type of trust, it can actually be labeled as a church, a ministry, a faith-based organization, any type of auxiliary to a church, or anything like that, okay? And so the reason why you don't have to file a 501c3 and go through that whole vigorous application process to be exempt from the IRS is because the separation between church and state, okay? So if you're operating it as such, then you are automatically exempt from taxes. With this type of entity, you can either operate it like religiously, right? Or you can operate it like an education based, okay? So it is a faith-based organization, and it can be, like I said, religious or educational. It doesn't have to. And it doesn't have to necessarily be, when I say religious, it doesn't have to necessarily, like the faith can be in anything, right? It can be in Mother Nature, it could be in the universe, it could be in Jesus, it could be in God. Or, so it just depends on what you want. So you actually get to set that up, okay? So back to what I was saying, this, you definitely, within your structure, you definitely want a for-profit entity and a nonprofit entity. That's going to ultimately help you reduce your taxes to the point that you can actually build wealth faster, okay? So let's move on to the next pillar, which is credit. So with credit, we have, the first thing is the nonprofit grants. So because you have a nonprofit within your structure, you do get to qualify for nonprofit grants. The second thing is you actually get to qualify and build business credit with the business trust. So with the business trust, you're going to get an EIN, and you can build credit with that EIN. Just like how you build credit with an LLC or a corporation, those entities are also building credit with an EIN. So you get to do the same thing, right? So you want to put yourself in a position to where you're using OPM, which is other people's money. So you actually want to use the bank's money in order to leverage that in order to, get rich, right? So a lot of us were using our personal credit, but that's just one credit profile, when you can actually leverage a second credit profile, which is the business trust. Because now you'll have a second credit profile that you get to build up. And with that second credit profile, you can actually qualify for higher lines of credit, because business credit, you get higher lines, okay? So you can qualify for business loans, lines of credit, and credit cards. So you want to be able to do that, so then you can move to the next pillar, which is invest, right? Which is where we're going to put ourselves in a position to acquire assets, okay? So these are the two assets that I recommend. I recommend an index universal life insurance policy and real estate, okay? So let's break it down. So the first one we're going to talk about is the policy. Why? Because a lot of us, we think that insurance is actually supposed to be utilized when we're dead. But in fact, insurance is supposed to be utilized when we are living, okay? It has a lot of living benefits. So one of the living benefits is that you get to build cash value with this type of policy. Not every single policy builds cash value, okay? But an IUL policy builds cash value. A whole life policy builds cash value, right? And so that's what you want. So that means that your premium payments that you're paying to the insurance is going to a separate bucket, which is that cash value. And then what's going to happen is you're going to earn a return on that money, right? So with the index universal life insurance policy, you see the word index in it. So that means that it's actually going to be mirroring the market, specifically any type of index that you choose. So we have indices in the market like the NASDAQ, the Dow Jones, and the S&P 500. Okay, and so you can choose whichever index you want. So generally we choose the S&P 500, which stands for Standard & Poor's, which is actually the top 500 companies in this country. So just imagine the type of returns that you're going to be making with the top 500 companies in the United States, right? So with that being said, whatever the market is doing is what the insurance carrier is going to match and give you that return. So if the market is doing, let's just say 8%, then that means that the insurance carrier is then going to match that and give you 8% return on your cash value. So if you have $10,000 just sitting in there, now guess what's going to happen? You're going to make 8% on that $10,000 versus the 0.000% that you're making on the bank, right? So with that being said, what you want to do is you want to build as much cash value as possible, okay? So with the IUL policy, it is actually what we call like a liquid asset, right? And then real estate is a tangible asset, right? And so with this policy, you're actually going to be earning that interest and building wealth tax-free, which is what you want. You want to reduce taxes as much as possible. You want to be operating with these type of assets that are tax-free as much as possible. Why? Because then that means that you're going to be making more money and you're going to be reinvesting that money. Okay, that's what we're talking about when we're talking about generational wealth, right? So what you want to do is you want to put yourself in a position to where you can actually pay yourself first. So that takes an entire mindset shift, right? Because a lot of us, we're so used to getting paid last. And that's how the system is designed, unfortunately, right? And I personally was, in that system when I was a nurse in the hospital, right? And so what does that look like, right? So let's just say that you're a W-2 employee. So the way that that looks is, it's Friday, it's payday, right? And so what's the first thing that happens? Well, the first thing that happens is that the IRS takes their cut. So the IRS does their tax withholding. The second thing is the Social Security Administration does their withholding. Then Medicare does their withholding. Then you do a 401k contribution. And then whatever's left over after those four companies get their money, the leftovers is then deposited into your bank account. So where are you depositing it? So you're depositing it into the bank, right? Into your checking account. With who? With Wells Fargo, with Chase, with Bank of America, right? With TD Bank, all of these different banks, right? So now what is happening? Your money is going straight to the bank. What is the bank doing? The bank is then lending your money out, right? Let's just be real. So they are then leveraging your deposit and they're lending it out on credit. So they're lending it out for credit cards, for auto loans, for mortgages, for student loans, and then they're earning interest, right? They're charging 30% interest. But how much are they giving you? So for your paycheck that just came in, they're giving you 0.000005%. So you're getting nothing, okay? So that's the first thing. The second thing is that a lot of people think that the banks are getting rich from the mortgages and the student loans and the car loans, right? But in actuality, their number one investment is life insurance policies. So we don't even know that, right? So it's called BOLI, bank-owned life insurance, okay? And that is their number one asset that they hold, okay? So if the bank's number one asset is a life insurance policy, do you think that your number one asset should be also a life insurance policy. Just think about it, right? Because you have that liquidity. That's what you need, right? That's what's important. So let's get back to the bank, right? So now your money was direct deposited into the bank, okay? So let's just say that you got $5,000. You just got paid. It's Friday. You work you work 80 hours. It's deposited into your actual bank account, $5,000. What is the first thing that you do? The first thing that you do is you pay your mortgage or your rent. You put gas in your car. You pay your utility bills, which is the water, the light, the gas. You put groceries in the kitchen, right? So that's what you do. You pay all of those companies first. And then after you're done paying all your bills, guess what? Out of that $5,000, you're probably left with $800. And that $800, you just let it sit in your checking account. So you're actually getting paid last. Why? Because what are you going to do with that $800? Right? That's the little bit of money that you have in order to invest. So that is the vicious cycle that we call the rat race. And if you continue down that road, you will always be in the rat race because there's no escaping that. So it's going to take a mindset shift in order for you to get out of the rat race, which means that instead of you paying yourself last, what you now need to do is pay yourself first, because that is how you're going to get out of the rat race. So what does that look like? Okay, so it's Friday. We just got paid. Direct deposit into our bank account is $5,000, right? So our money is actually going to the bank, to Wells Fargo, Chase, TD Bank, right? And like I said, we're making them rich. When in actuality, it needs to go inside of our bank, our private money bank. What is our private money bank? That is the life insurance policy that you have that is building cash value. That is your private money bank. It is liquid. Literally, if you want the money tomorrow, you get it tomorrow. Direct deposit into your bank account, right? So with that being said, that $5,000 just came in, direct deposit into Wells Fargo. Instead of you paying your mortgage, your rent, putting gas in the car, buying groceries, paying the electricity, what you're going to do is you're going to pay yourself first. So that means that that money, that $5,000, the entire amount, is going to go straight into your life insurance policy. It's going to go straight into the cash value. Your cash value is then going to go up by $5,000. And then guess what? You're going to make that 8% or whatever the market is doing. It could be doing 5%, 6%, 7%, 10%, 12%, 13%, whatever it's doing. You're going to make that return on the $5,000, right? So the $5,000 just went into your IUL policy. Let's say the S&P 500 is doing 7%. So now you're making 7% return on that $5,000, which is beautiful. That is how you're going to put yourself in a position to where your money is making money and you don't have to work so hard, right? Because now we are brainwashed to think that we have to work 40 hours a week for 40 years, retire when we're 65, and pretty much retire with nothing or having to depend on the government or Social Security. But no, you're going to start paying yourself first. You're going to deposit those funds into your life insurance policy. And now you're going to be building compound interest on that cash value. So that $5,000 is now going to be compounding at 7 to 8%, right? But you need money to pay your mortgage. You need money to keep the lights on. You need money to be able to put gas in your car so you can make it to work tomorrow. So what's going to happen is you're going to leverage your cash value. So you're actually going to request a loan from the life insurance company, and they're going to look at your cash value. They're going to see that you have $5,000 in there. So what they're going to do is they're going to lend you $4,800. So they got to leave a little bit of cushion in there. But that money is not going to come from your cash value. That money is going to come from the life insurance company's reserves, from their account. So they're going to issue you a check, or they're going to direct deposit into your bank account $4,800. Your $5,000 is still sitting inside of your insurance policy, inside of the cash value, compounding, making 7% interest. And you just borrowed their $4,800 so that you can pay your bills. That is the concept of you paying yourself first. That is what you need to start in order to get out of the rat race, in order to have this mindset shift, in order to become financially free, in order to actually build the generational wealth that you're designed to build. So, with that being said, the life insurance policy is amazing. The way that we tie it into the trust is, hold on, guys. So the way that we tie it into the trust is your trust, specifically your private family trust, is going to be the owner of your life insurance policy. The trust is going to be the payer of the life insurance policy premiums. The trust is going to be the beneficiary of the life insurance policy. So I'll talk about that in just a minute because I have another slide for you. The second asset that I want to talk to you guys about is real estate, okay? So your IUL policy needs to be your first asset in your trust. Your second asset is going to be real estate. So you have your liquid asset, and then you have your tangible asset, okay? So with real estate, guess what? A trust can actually qualify for a mortgage. A trust can qualify for a home equity line of credit. So what you want to do is you want to put the trust in position to where it can sustain itself. You don't want to be pouring in your W-2 income into the trust. Okay, the trust needs to be able to generate its own income, to be able to acquire assets, to be able to be cash flowing. That's how you're going to build the wealth, okay? So what you're going to do is you're actually going to have you're going to actually get an investment loan for the real estate, okay? So it's called a DSCR loan, okay? So that's debt service ratio loan, where they give you up to 80% of the purchase price for that real estate as long as it's an investment property. So remember, we're going to be acquiring real estate that's for investment purposes for the trust, okay? So now we have a loan to where all we have to do is provide bank statements showing that we have proof of income, so that we can then now qualify for 80%, right? So now what's going to happen? Well, you're purchasing this rental property, and so you need to come up with the other 20%. Where is it going to come from? Well, remember previously we were building business credit, right? So you have built business credit, and let's just say that you qualified for a credit card for $25,000, another credit card for $30,000. That is what you're going to use in order to fulfill that down payment, that 20% down payment that you need. Okay, so 80% is going to come from the DSCR loan, and 20% is going to come from your business credit cards. So all you have to do is liquidate those business credit cards. But before you after you liquidate the credit cards and before you use it as a down payment for real estate, what you want to do is you want to funnel that money into your IUL policy. You're always going to pay yourself first. So you're going to strip that credit card for the $30,000. You're going to then deposit that $30,000 into your IUL policy. You're going to borrow it back out, right? So now let's just say you have $29,000 and you're going to use that to put down on real estate. So now you acquire this property and it's cash flowing, okay? The renters are paying you every single month, right? And so now what you're going to do is the first thing that you're going to do with that cash flow is you're going to funnel it inside of your cash value life insurance policy. So now that cash value life insurance policy is growing, it's accumulating, it's compounding, it's earning 7, 8, 9%, right? You're then going to borrow those funds out. You're going to pay back the credit card and pay the mortgage, and the rest is going to be cash flow for your trust, right? And then you're going to continue this process. So it's rinse and repeat so that you can accumulate the wealth that you were put on this earth to accumulate, okay? So let's keep moving on, you guys. I got 2 more slides for you. All right. So how do you actually transfer wealth? That's one thing that I know that you are not asking yourself, right? I'm making the $1 million, but how am I going to transfer it to my child, right? And so what you need to do is you need to put yourself in a position to where you own nothing but control everything. And that statement is so powerful that I'm going to say it again. You need to put yourself in a position to where you own nothing but control everything. That is the definition of stewardship, right? Which is what you need to be operating. You need to be operating in stewardship versus ownership. So right now you're actually operating in ownership, which is that you're this proud individual, right? That actually owns this house. So you're boasting about it, right? Okay, yes, I'm the owner of this house, right? That's ownership. But in the event, right, that you didn't wake up tomorrow, right, the house is going to end up in probate. So you don't want that to happen, right? So what is it? What is your true goal here, right? Because the house that you're living in, that house is designed to outlive you. If you don't wake up tomorrow, that house is still going to be there. So what your true desire is to control the house while you're alive. That's your true desire. So you can do that by way of stewardship versus ownership, where the trust is the owner of the property and you're the controller of the property because you're the trustee of the trust. So you're still the one that's signing on behalf of the trust. You're still the one that can buy it, sell it, rent it, lease it, do whatever you want to that property. You get to dispose of it however you want as the trustee of the trust versus as you as a natural human person, okay? So stewardship is one of the most important things. So you have a trust, right? And one of the ways that we actually transfer the assets is through TCUs. So TCUs stand for Trust Certificate Units, okay? So with these trust certificate units, they actually represent beneficial interest in a trust, right? So just like how stock certificates represent ownership interest in a business, TCUs represent beneficial interest in a trust because we don't use the term ownership when we're referring to a trust because a trust is a living entity and you can't really, own a living entity, right? So with that being said, your trust, once you establish it and you fund it, your trust is going to then create 100 trust certificate units. That's going to represent 100% of beneficial interest in your trust, okay? And so let's just say that you have, 5 beneficiaries. You got 5 children, 5 beneficiaries, right? So you want to distribute the TCUs equally. So each child, you're going to give them 20 TCUs. That means that each child has 20% of beneficial interest in the trust. So let's just say that the entire net worth of the trust is $1 million. That means that each beneficiary then has a beneficial interest that is equivalent to $200,000. Okay, so that's extremely powerful, and that is how you want to distinguish the transfer of your wealth. Okay, so let's talk about preservation, okay? Because preservation is super important. So a lot of us, we, like I said, are so focused on making the money, We're so focused on acquiring the assets. I want the house, I want the 6 figures, the 7 figures. We never think to ourselves, how am I going to preserve this wealth for generations? I'm out here walking around talking about I'm building generational wealth, but I don't have a plan in place in order for the wealth to actually last until the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th generation. So how many times have we seen it to where athletes, celebrities, famous families, to where they literally lose their wealth in their lifetime, or it doesn't even last the 2nd or 3rd generation? We see it all the time. Why? Because they don't have the tools in place in order to actually preserve their wealth. What are the tools in place in order to preserve your wealth? There's 2 tools. The first one is the trust. That's what I've been talking about this entire call, right? The second one is the cash value life insurance policy. Those are the 2 tools that you need in order to preserve your wealth. So let's break it down. So the first thing is that your trust, right? It has physical assets, which is the house, the car, right? The bank account. And so those physical assets, they have insurance, right? The house, if anything happens to it, if it floods, if there's a fire damage, guess what? There's insurance, right? There's homeowners insurance, right? Same thing with the car. So those assets are insured. The trust also has what we call a human asset, human capital, which is you. You are the trustee of the trust. Your children are the beneficiaries of the trust. You guys are human assets in the trust. The trust also needs to insure you. Why? Because you are the most important person in the trust. So if anything happens to you, the trust is actually suffering a loss, right? It's devastating for the trust. So that means that the trust needs to be compensated for that loss. So what's going to happen is the trust is going to take out a life insurance policy, specifically a cash value, an IUL, a whole life, right? On every single person associated with the trust. That means you as the trustee and all of the trustees, all of the beneficiaries, and all of the future beneficiaries. Why? Because if anything happens to you, that death benefit goes to the trust. So if you didn't wake up tomorrow and attached to your life insurance policy is a death benefit of $2 million, guess what? That $2 million goes straight to the trust. And now the trust is replenished. That trust fund now goes up by $2 million. That can then be utilized to reinvest so that your money is making money for you and you don't have to clock in for money, right? So that's what you want. So now the trust is going to take out a policy on every single person that's associated with the trust. The trust is going to be the payer of the policy. The trust is going to be the owner of the policy. The trust is going to be the beneficiary of the policy. And you, as the living being, is going to be the insured on the policy. So that is what needs to happen in order for true preservation to actually occur. And so like we said, it's going to be you and all of the trustees, right? So if you have, a spouse or somebody that's actually operating the trust with you, it's going to be both of you. And then all of the beneficiaries, which are your children, and all the future beneficiaries, which are your children's children. Okay? Because now, whenever there is a baby that is born into the trust, that's what we call a trust fund baby. And we need to normalize trust fund babies in our community, you guys. So you have that beneficiary that was just born into the trust, right? They're an heir. So as soon as that baby is 30 days old, guess what the trust is going to do? The trust is going to take out an index universal life insurance policy on that 30-day-old baby. And so now the trust is going to be paying that premium, building cash value that's going to be compounding. And now let's fast forward into the future. That trust fund baby is now 18 years old. So that trust fund baby, now it's time for them to go to college. They need money for tuition. They need a new car. So normally what can happen is they can go down to the dealership, they can pull their credit, they can get into an auto loan with the dealership for $30,000, pay $900 a month, right? That's the normal process. Or what they can do is they can go to the trust and request a loan for $30,000 so that they can buy their first vehicle. So now what's going to happen is the trustee is actually going to issue out a check and a promissory note, right, for the $30,000 and hand it over to the beneficiary. And now that beneficiary is going to go buy their car cash. And instead of them paying the dealership $900, they'll now start to pay the trust, $300 a month. So now the trust is earning a little bit of interest and receiving these monthly payments. So let's just say fast forward into the future, the beneficiary decides that they don't want to pay anymore. So they default on the loan. It was actually a risk-free loan. Why? Because the money did not come from the trust fund. The money actually came from the life insurance policy of that trust fund baby. So the trustee actually contacted the insurance carrier, requested a loan for $30,000. That money was already built into the cash value compounding. And so the insurance carrier then did a direct deposit for the $30,000 into the trust fund. The trustee then issued the check to the beneficiary. So because it was a risk-free loan, because those loans do not need to be paid back. Why? Because the loans don't need to be paid back because there's a death benefit associated with that cash value life insurance policy. So in the event that you decide you don't want to pay the loan back because it's not required, that money is just going to be deducted from the death benefit. So that means it'll come out of the, $1.5 million. And it's okay that the beneficiary defaulted on the loan with the trust, because once that beneficiary expires, that $1.5 million is going straight to the trust fund. So the loan is satisfied. So that's the process that you need to take in order for you to preserve the wealth that you're creating, in order for it to actually last the generations that you have been talking about, right? The 5, 6, 7 generations into the future. So me, I actually have 5 IUL policies. I have 2 trustees in my trust, and I have 3 living beneficiaries. So my trust has 5 IUL policies, and it pays the premium of those policies every single quarter. And you guys need to design the same thing so that you can have your own private bank, which is your policies, and it's actually going to be operating from the trust. All right, so with that being said, these are the books that I recommend. I recommend What Would the Rockefellers Do? That is a really good book teaching you guys about the marriage between life insurance and a trust. Everything that I've been telling you guys. The next one is The Art of Passing the Buck, Volume 1 and 2, which teaches you guys about trusteeship. So it teaches you how to actually operate a trust. The next one is Family Wealth, which teaches you how to actually operate your family like a business, right? Where you have regular meetings, where your leaders are executors, right? Executives. So you need to run your family like a business. So we call it a family office. And then the last one is the Complete Book of Trust, which teaches you about the different trusts, that are involved, right? The different trusts that are created that you can choose from. Okay, So you need to take action on the information that I have provided you guys with tonight. So I want to show you a quick video of one of the trustees that actually took action on the information that I provided tonight.
Well, kudos to you all. Again, Christina, it's been a wonderful experience. I've been looking at your videos on YouTube for a while. And, there are a number of people offering trust these days. And, I guess that's the big thing, don't own anything, control everything. That kind of, I didn't say it correctly, but that is the sentiment. And so it seems like the playing field is being leveled now from the rich and people who weren't privy to this information. So thank you for being such a great asset to a community that didn't have this information. And you made it so simple. Thank you for the recordings. Thank you for the step-by-step instructions, things that we can go back and look at. So we do appreciate you. And thank you, Mondo.
All right, guys. So take action on the information that I provided you guys with tonight, because a trust could be your new form of doing business. It can actually protect you, right? So it can protect your assets, and it can actually save whatever it is. It could actually save you a lot of money on taxes as well, right? So you need to treat this like a big business. You need to treat this like a Walmart or an Amazon or a Facebook, not like any little small mom and pop shop. This is not what that is, okay? You're talking about building generational wealth. So it's up to you to actually change the trajectory of your family, of your kids' life. So now, instead of your children, growing up and going and getting a 9 to 5, what's going to happen is now they're going to grow up to become successor trustees. Now you're going to be teaching them that they're going to be operating a trust, right? And they have built wealth through the trust, and they're going to teach their children. And then it's going to go down as a domino effect from generation to generation to generation, because of the work that you're doing right now, because you decided to take action on this information and set that solid foundation, right? How is it that you're going to build wealth without any solid foundation? Wealth is not only about making money, right? Wealth is about actually being properly structured. Wealth is about protecting what you currently have so that it actually can grow, right? So what I want is for us to actually work together, you guys, okay? So what we can do is we can work together. I actually have two options for you guys. The first one is do it yourself, to where I have a course. I have a course teaching you all of this information. There's only so much that I could have gone through in the last 90 minutes. We've only been here for 90 minutes, right? So that I've only just barely even scratched the surface. And so inside of my course, it has 43 video modules where it teaches you how to be properly structured by setting up the 3 trusts that I just educated you guys on. The business trust, if you are a business owner or want to conduct business, or an entrepreneur. The family trust, if you have personal assets that are in your family name, like your crypto, your stocks, your bonds, your house, your car, things like that, your jewelry, your insurance policies, right? And then the tax exempt nonprofit trust, so that you can reduce your taxes and actually grow your wealth, exponentially, right? So you want to grow it fast and not slow, right? And so you want to reduce as much taxes as possible. So you actually get access to the 3 trust templates. So what happens is you watch the modules where we break down every single paragraph of the trust, and then you go and set up the trust, okay? We show you how to do it yourself. Why? Because a trust is a contract. You do not need an attorney in order to create your own contract, in order to create your own trust estate. Trust me, you can do it yourself, okay? So with the actual course, you get lifetime access, right? So 2 years down the line, if you want to go ahead and set up a 5th trust or a 6th trust, you can do that. And then we give you resources and ebooks. So the books that I just listed and recommended, they come inside of the course in the electronic version. Some of those books they cost like over $800, okay? So you get it inside of the actual course, which is phenomenal. And then you get the resources. So the resources is everything that you need in order to operate the trust, meaning that if you need to go and apply for your EIN, we give you that application process, right? If you need to have a board meeting, we give that to you. If you need to transfer your house into the trust, we give you the quick claim deed templates, everything that you need in order to actually operate your trust, we give it to you in the resources. The next thing is that we're building a community. We have over 500 trustees nationwide, and you get direct access to them in our Facebook community, which is a private Facebook community, as well as our Telegram chat. So we are literally chatting like all day long from morning to night about what we're talking about now, which is trusteeship, okay? So you get your questions to your, you get the answers to your questions right away if you just throw it inside of the chat, okay? So with that, the course is only $997. Your second option is Done With You, where we do it as a group, you guys. So just like how we're on a group right now on Zoom, you get to actually learn in that style as well, right? So the group is actually in a workshop style setting. So it's actually 1 week long. It's the last week of the month. So it's pretty much every 4 weeks. And it's Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we gather together 3 hours a day and we get everything done in 1 week. So on Mondays, we actually set up the business trust together. Tuesday, we set up the private family trust together. Wednesday, we set up the faith-based organization, the tax-exempt organization trust together. On Thursday, we actually go and start building business credit for our business trust. And then we do board meetings so that you can go and open up bank accounts for your trust. And then we have a specialist who comes in and teaches you about how to fund your trust fund using OPM. That's what you want to do. You don't want to be pouring in your money into the trust. We show you how to tap in, get the bank's money in order to fund your trust, okay? And then on Friday, which is the last day of the workshop, we focus on transferring your assets. So the first asset we focus on is transferring your property, okay? That's usually your biggest asset, okay? And so we show you how to quit claim deed your property from your personal name into the name of the trust. We provide you with the templates. We show you how to fill it out correctly, okay? And then we do the same thing for your car with the bill of sale and for your business, so that now you're not liable for the business and you make the business trust liable for the business, okay? And then the last thing that we show you is we have a specialist who comes in, and she's a specialist when it comes to infinite banking, and she's going to teach you about the different cash value life insurance policies and how you could build wealth using those policies, and how you can magically, mirror the is it mirror? No, you can marry, that's what I wanted to say. You can marry the trust and the life insurance policies together, okay? So that is a week long, like I said. So we get it done in 1 week and we hold you accountable, right? So after the workshop week is done, then you book a one-on-one with me and I will review all of your trust documents. Make sure that you actually filled out everything correctly before you print it out and you notarize it and you get it legalized and you go open up your bank accounts, okay? So it actually comes with access to the course. So you get both. You get the course and the workshop. You get lifetime access to the workshop. So every single month when we do the workshop, you just come in and you learn more. And it's extremely powerful for you to do it as a group. Why? Because there's other individuals in the Zoom call that they actually ask questions that you didn't even know that you wanted to know. So now you're actually learning more than if you were to do it by yourself. Okay, so like I said, my team and I, we assist you throughout the whole, way. And so we answer your questions. So we literally do not get off the Zoom call until every single question is answered and answered thoroughly. And then you get that sense of security to know that your trust was set up the right way. So the workshop is only $2,500, you guys. Okay, so those are your two options. And you can go to wealthytrustee.com in order to sign up for the actual program. So just choose whichever one you want. So what I want to do is I want to do something special. So one, I want to show you what the course looks like. Two, I want to show you what one of the trust templates look like. And then I want to, actually what I want to do is I want to give you guys a discount. So for the people who are on the call right now, if you guys take action in the next 24 hours, then you can enjoy 20% off. So you can use the discount code TRUST20 when you go to the website, okay? So this is the website, wealthytrustee.com, and we're going to also put it in the chat. So my team should have put it in the chat already. And then this is our contact information, you guys, okay? So you can actually call call me on the phone. Here's the number. I will answer. Okay. 305-749-9215. Okay. So that's the community line. You can call, I'll answer, or someone on my team will answer. One of us will answer. You can email whatever questions that you have, I will answer. Okay. And then you can also visit us on social media. All right. So now let me show you what the actual course looks like, as well as what the trust template looks like. Okay. So this is what the course looks like, you guys. So like I told you, you get login credentials. Once you enroll into the program, you get the login credentials. You log in and this is what it looks like. So the first thing you see is your introduction, okay, us welcoming you. And then we dive into the 43 video modules. So the first section is the trust entity, where you learn what a trust is, okay? So like I said, in the last 90 minutes, I could only tell you just a little snippet, right? So here's where you dive in thoroughly. So I teach you guys what a trust is and the different parties, right? The grantor, trustee, beneficiaries, successors, protectors, the benefits and the different types of trust. Then you dive into the actual tax exempt trust. So you learn the different parts in the actual contract, okay? The declaration, the bylaws, the schedule, and how to actually apply for your EIN. Then you do the same thing for the private family trust and for the business trust. Then we go into tax strategies. Why? Because the way that you're going to build wealth is by reducing taxes. Let's just be honest. So you have to learn these strategies, and you have to do what the Rockefellers do. You have to do what Donald Trump does. You have to do what Bill Gates does, right? Which is what? Have a trust within your structure, okay? So we show you how to actually have tax exempt status with your trust, how to apply for it, what the different income levels looks like, okay? And how to avoid tax evasion. That's not what we're doing here, okay? And then next is asset protection. Why? Because that's the whole point of you actually having a trust. So the first thing is that you actually need to take inventory of the assets that you have so that you know which trust that they're going to go in. And then we show you how to open up a bank account, a brokerage account, how to transfer your house, your car, your insurance policies, your LLCs or your corporations, and how to actually do board meetings, right? Because a lot of people who are actually running businesses and organizations and trusts, they're not having meetings, right? So you're not actually doing proper documentation, but we show you how to actually do proper documentation for your entity, okay? Then we go into wealth creation, where we show you how to build credit with your business trust so that you can leverage that credit and you can actually acquire assets for the trust, okay? Without using your own money. That is not what we show you here. Use the bank's money. Get rich off of the banks because they're getting rich off of you, all right? And then we show you how to invest those funds in the market, either by way of index funds or REITs, okay? And then how to do the infinite banking with the insurance policies. We show you about a legacy crest so that you can use it with your legacy trust, and all the resources that you're going to need to operate your trust, and all of the ebooks, okay? So that is the program that you're going to be buying into if you're ready to actually build generational wealth and protect your assets. This is an example. Hold on, guys. This is an example of what the actual trust looks like, if I could get to it. So this is an example of a trust template, okay? So everything that you see in red is what you fill out. So I break down every single paragraph of the trust. This trust is over 60 something pages, you guys, okay? So you are going to learn the contents of the trust. Why? Because it's so important for you to know what you're operating. Okay, so this is just an example of the template that you get with the program. This is just one of the 3 trusts that you get with the program, okay? So with that being said, it is a wrap. We are all done with the webinar, you guys. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to open up the floor for questions. If anybody has any questions, go ahead and raise your hand, come off mute. I'll be able to answer any questions that you have. Any questions? Let me take a look at the chat. All right, so if you guys are interested in the replay, you can go to our YouTube channel. So it's the number 7 Ways to Wealth. The link is also in the chat, and then you can watch this entire replay again, okay? Because I know that I go fast, and I go fast because I try to stay within the 90 minutes, you guys. Okay, so I'm so sorry. So go ahead and watch the replay, or, send it to a friend or a family member if you're interested. Okay. Once again, two things. If you guys are interested in the workshop, the next workshop, we're actually having it this week. So we only have 2 more days, which is Thursday and Friday. So the next workshop, which would be the last week of August. So it's going to be August 26th to the, I guess, 29th or 30th, August 26th to the 30th. Okay. And like I said, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we're going to be together 3 hours per day, Monday through Friday. That's the best way to get this done. Okay. So if you're interested, go ahead and take advantage of the discount, right? So use the discount code TRUST20 when you go to wealthytrustee.com. And if you cannot afford to pay in full right now, then what you want to do is you want to put a deposit. So if you go to the chat, then you can put a $200 deposit, and that will secure your spot for the 20% off. And then you can pay the balance whenever you're ready, or you can pay it closer to the workshop, okay? So we have Raph. Hey, Raph, how are you? Is it Raph? Rolf? You're on mute.
Hi, Christina, could you hear me?
Yes, perfect. How are you?
I'm doing well. This is Rafi, by the way. I've been doing the modules, and it's amazing, actually, I gotta say.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you, thank you, thank
Thank
you.
you, thank you. So my question is, can I put a clause in the irrevocable trust to say that, hey, I could sell this house anytime I want instead of waiting for the trust to be dissolved?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's actually in the trustee powers, but you can add anything
Okay.
specific or you can change it, but it's inside of the trustee powers that you're able to dispose of the assets however you deem necessary. So
Got it, got it.
it's already in there, but you might want to polish it up a little bit or customize it. So that's what it's designed for.
Got it. And second question, since this is a non-statutory, should I get rid of that part that says, let's say California's statutory and state annotated law, such and such. Should I get rid of that, or because we're not operating with the statutes, right? It's a common law.
Right, correct. Yeah, it is. So the only verbiage that we really use is that we're just identifying that we are establishing the trust in the California Republic of the Unincorporated Republic of the United States of America.
Yes.
Yeah, so as long as
Okay.
you leave that, then you're fine.
Okay. All right. Cool.
All right, sounds
Cool.
good.
Thanks
Thank
again,
you.
Christina. I appreciate it.
You're,
Thank you for everything.
you're welcome. You're welcome. It's a pleasure.
Bye.
All right. Next, we have Rishi. Did I say your name correctly? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's right, Rishi. Hi.
Okay,
Can you hear me?
awesome. Hi.
Yeah, so I just kind of had a question about I have a business right now for the past couple of years, and I opted to be, I guess, take the tax classification as an S corp, and I wanted to see like would this set up for the trust, would that like how would that differ for me, and what would I need to do in order to be able to move forward in that process? Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So because it's an S corp, or even if it's a C corp, but because it's an S corp with the corporations, you have to have an individual that's attached to the entity, right? So what you can do is, and this is the way we do it, is you want to have, you can still add the business trust, but the business trust cannot own the S corp 100%. So you can do 99% for the business trust and 1% for you as the human. Or you can do anywhere. So we usually do anywhere between 90-10 upwards of 99-1. So whichever one that you want, or if your CPA wants to recommend anything else, but usually we do like 99-1 because it's a corporation. So a corporation cannot be solely owned by a trust. So there also needs to be, that individual associated with it. If you want to change the classification back to it being an LLC or a partnership, then you can have the trust own 100%.
Got it. Yeah, that's what I was looking into and seeing that you might have to revert back to just a plain or a just an LLC. But okay, so there is a workaround for it. Great.
Yep, there sure is. And sometimes it's better for liability purposes to have the business trust own 100% so that you have 0% liability.
Not put my name on it.
Exactly. Yep. So no one will know that you're the owner, but because it's an S corp or a C corp, then unfortunately they will know that you're associated with that business.
Got it. Okay, great. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
You're so welcome. All right, thank you for being here. We have Tracy. She said, should I hold more than one LLC? So the business trust can hold multiple LLCs or be in multiple partnerships or shareholders in multiple companies. But again, you don't want to put all of your eggs in one basket. So for example, if you have some businesses that are high liability businesses like real estate or trucking, you want those you want a separate business trust for high liability businesses versus your low liability businesses like, retail or restaurant or e-com or something like that. So you might want to create multiple just depending on like the industry that you're in. Let's see here. We have the next person said, do you recommend certain insurance companies? Yes. So I recommend that you actually reach out to our agent. So if you go to where it has the links and then you go to where it says book a call with our insurance partner, go ahead and get on her calendar because she works with multiple companies, multiple insurance carriers. And so she's going to actually tailor your financial status. She's going to get all of your information and she's going to place you with the best company that's actually going to help you get higher returns dealing with the cash value, right? So this is customized. So my insurance policies is not going to be the same as yours. I'm not going to pay the same premium as yours. So this is a customized thing. So that's why you want to get with the specialist in order for them to be able to really do that for you and your family size too, right? So like me, I'm a mother, I have 3 children. So my family dynamic is different as well as my financials, okay? So next we have Carrie said you are God sent. Thank you so much. You are God sent for actually being here and getting this information. So I applaud you guys. Next we have Omar. Hey, Omar, how are you? I can't hear you. You're on mute. No.
There we go. How about that?
Oh, awesome. Hey, how are you?
I'm doing pretty well. How you been?
Oh, good. Wonderful. I like the beard. Awesome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Kind of wild style, but yeah. What I wanted to ask was concerning the insurance. Is it okay? It's possible for the trust to be the beneficiary. But with that being said, would there still be medical requirements as far as qualifying for the?
Yep, that's a good question. So they're not so strict. So for example, if you have high blood pressure or diabetes or history of cancer, you can still get life insurance, okay? But they have different grades. So they have A grade, they have like grade A if you have like you're in perfect health. But then if you're not so in perfect health, maybe you'll get like a grade B or a grade C, which means that your premium is going to be a little bit higher because you have pre-existing conditions. There we go.
Yeah.
But what I want to tell you is that yes, there's going to be a medical involved because you are the insured. So even though the trust is the owner and paying the policy and the beneficiary, the insurance company is insuring your life. Okay, so that's why they make sure that they do a medical. So they check your background and then they're also going to draw your blood and have like kind of like a physical thing going on. Because they want to make sure that they give you the right, price and that they're able to approve you for the insurance. So you're the insured and yes, there's a medical attached to it.
Okay, got it. And this is another insurance question.
Yes.
Based on the amount of the death benefit, is it still possible to like maybe just fund it up for the whole year? Say it's like, 60. 50,000 for that whole year. Is it okay just to put that whole 40, 50 in at one time, or should I
Yes,
ask Brian
absolutely.
about that?
No,
Oh, I can do
yes.
that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So you can, so what you're gonna do is it's called like a single premium. So if you want to just put the whole entire amount and be done with it and not have to pay monthly or quarterly, you can do that.
Okay. All right. Sounds great. I appreciate it. Thank you again.
You're so welcome. Do you have the link for our insurance partner?
Yes, I do. I do.
Okay, perfect.
I've actually talked to a gentleman, and he said, get that trust together and get back with me. So first things first.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. All right, next we have Carrie. Hey, Carrie.
Hey, oh my
How
gosh,
are-
you're an angel. Like, you're an angel.
Thank
Like,
you.
I'm
I
so
appreciate it.
serious. This came into my lap at like the best time. I know you don't need to hear all my backstory, and you don't, and I won't. But my gosh, the gratitude is, I want to cry. I'm so grateful, and thank you so much, so much. I needed
You
this.
are
I'm
you
going
are
through,
so welcome. I'm
I'm going
excited
through
for you.
divorce. I'm moving into my new house tomorrow. I'm going through divorce. It's like, woo! So this was like Liberation Station, and I pulled up and I was like, I'm on board. And so I've already signed up for the coaching group thing. But okay, I have a question. So I'm
Yes.
100% totally permanently disabled veteran. All
Okay.
right. And I have the VA rating with the PTSD. Not that y'all need to hear all that, but this is like a group conversation. I got nothing, no shame,
Yes.
but whatever. I've got the 70% PTSD rating with the VA. When I go to get my health insurance, well, not health insurance, my insurance policy, um, is that going to like be a negative like factor in being able to receive an insurance policy? I don't have anything that I've ever done anything. It's just part of the VA rating system.
Okay, so it shouldn't so like, when it comes to like, like things dealing with psychological and stuff, it shouldn't. The only thing that I would
Okay.
say is if you're like on medication, then they would look at
No.
like the side effects for those medications and things like that, and if they can cause, cancer and all this other stuff. But other than that, you should be fine. So the insurance carriers, they accept, most kind of, you know, challenges, health challenges. So you should be
Okay.
fine with that. And then another thing is, if let's just say you get denied with one carrier, you can also apply with another one. So usually we've seen that too with our trustees, that one carrier will deny them and then they'll get approved with the next one and no issue. So
Okay.
yeah, so
All right.
you'll definitely be fine.
And then I got one more because
Yeah.
we're starting the divorce proceedings. He's been served already. But should I put my car that I'm sitting in? Should I put this into create a personal trust like tomorrow morning? All right, probably over the weekend, but whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, should I create a personal trust and then put the car, even though it's not paid off, put the car into the personal trust prior to the divorce proceedings?
Yes, you should. Yeah. So you
Okay.
guys haven't gone to court yet?
Not yet. No. No,
Okay.
I'm telling you, we just starting on this.
Okay. Okay. Then you should, yeah, so you should be fine. So you definitely want to secure and protect any and all assets before you get as far as going, to court and having any type of judgments or issues with the assets and stuff like that.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Angel. I appreciate you.
Yeah.
And I look forward to the group calls.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Carrie. You are an angel. So I'm so glad that you're here, and I'm excited to help you, during this journey. So absolutely, I'm here for
It's
you.
such a blessing. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. All right, next we have let's see. So Ivory said stewardship equals the divine right of use. I love it. Next is how about per state? So I'm not sure what that question is referring to. Let me see. Next is Should more than one LLC go into the same trust? So it depends on you. You can put more than one LLC in, but it just depends on the type of LLC. So best practice is, for you to think, hey, what's going to happen in the event that my trust is sued? Then that means all of your businesses are up for grabs, right? So you might want to do one business per trust, or you might want to do it based off of the the type of industry that those businesses are in. And then let's see here. Does this program help review trusts that we were set up, other DIY services to make sure that they were set up properly? So this program doesn't help you review other trusts that you already set up. So for example, if you already have trust from somewhere else, we don't review it in the program. But if you want me to review it, I can. All you have to do is just book a consultation with me, and I can look it over for you and answer any questions that you might have based on your existing trust. All right, so just send me an email, and then I can send you the link for the consultation if you want that. Yeah, so with that being said, any other last questions? Because it is approaching 9 o'clock and we're going to end it. So once again, you guys go to Wealthy Trustee, www.wealthytrustee.com. Use discount code TRUST20. Go ahead and enjoy that 20% off. If you don't have it, you can then go ahead and put a $200 deposit, and we'll hold your 20% discount for you until you're ready to pay the balance, okay? So with that being said, thank you so much for being here. You guys have a blessed and amazing evening, and we look forward to helping you in this journey and introducing you guys into the program and to the other trustees, because we are doing life together, right? So it is what you're doing right now is so impactful. You are changing the trajectory of your kids' life, and you are what we call that generational curse breaker, okay? So I applaud you guys. Congratulations, and be blessed. And let me know if you have any questions. You can call the community line, you can email me, you can DM me. All right, guys, have a